Who's that coming down the track? Who's that coming down the track? It's a mean machine in red and white. Mean machine in red and white. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Than a drunk obnoxious Georgia man. Than a drunk obnoxious Georgia man. Go, go! Go, go! Go, go!
What's up, y'all? This is John and Caleb back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. We're here to preview what could and hopefully for everything but the night game will be a chaotic week of college football here for week 12. But before we get to all that, how you been? What are you drinking?
I have been all right. It's another week with a Linkin Park banger, and we get the whole album tomorrow. So pretty stoked for that. It's been a chaotic week at work. So if the college football week is anything like my work week, it's going to be absolutely insane. So how about you? How's it going?
Same wild week at work. Why ease in after a week on vacation? Just, hit the ground with a sledgehammer to the face and let it just keep going.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll tell you what, you can always tell how needed you are at work by how crazy things get when you get back from vacation.
yeah, and I'm glad you said something about Lincoln Park there because that reminds me to double check with Rock 1061, make sure I'm good to be there tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Um, the last time I was there, which was the week before I went on vacation, after we did our little segment, we just sat there and talked about songs that we had forgotten how good they were for a solid 20 minutes.
Always a good
Um,
conversation.
Yeah, and I think I may have influenced the song selection for the rest of the afternoon, so that was cool.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, that was a ton of fun. But man, um, I'm sure y'all know by now. I'm not, I didn't graduate college. I didn't, not the smartest person in the world, but I'm ready to black out on Saturday.
Yeah.
That is what the Spike Squad asked for,
Yeah,
right?
hopefully they're going to assist us by instead of just having beer in Sanford Stadium, get some of the hard stuff in there so that we can black out in Sanford Stadium. That's my interpretation.
Okay, cool. As long as we're on the same page, because we're both going to be at the game.
Yeah,
So
we are. So we'll just, I don't
yeah,
know how long we're gonna remember the game based on what they're asking us to do, but we'll be there.
hey, the last time I was at a Georgia game where there was a blackout, I also do not remember the end of that game, and I lost a hat in the stands.
Oh,
So
snap. All right.
2020 Mississippi State. Uh, that was the game we got our tickets to, and what did I do? I had both boots with two flask in them.
Nice.
And yeah, it was cold. Y'all know me. I'm a little bitch in the cold. I don't want to be cold. Gotta have that liquid warmth. And I don't know, I think I paid like $35 for this hat, which I'm cheap as hell. I don't like paying good money for anything.
Right. Same.
And fun fact
Although I
for
will
foot.
pay good money for this hat that's currently on my head, which you can currently buy at millions.co in our store.
Yeah, no, I want one of those, but I don't even though I can get it for cost, I don't like spending. I like gifts. I
Yeah.
just, every hat that I currently own was a gift, as odd as that sounds. I don't buy
They're not
things
that odd. I think
myself.
most of mine were too. So,
Yeah, I don't. The hat I have on is actually a hat for work because I didn't even have a chance to change out of work clothes before we started recording here.
hmm.
Um, But yeah, the last expensive hat I bought, I left in Sanford Stadium, and the next day tried to get in touch with anyone at Sanford Stadium or the athletic department or the football program and be like, "Hey guys, I left something in the stadium last night, and it's been 4 years. I have not heard anything back."
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they were too keen to get back to you on that one.
No, no.
Yeah. Last time I went to a blackout was the first one. So I am very much looking forward to getting back to another one, even if they probably aren't going to wear the color on the field.
Question: do you remember how to do the Soldier Boy dance?
Do I remember it? Yes. Am I going to demonstrate? No.
If they play it in the stadium, are you going to do
I'd have to be okay with my wife leaving me in Athens,
it?
but maybe.
I'll be honest, I don't remember it. I'll have to brush up just in case.
Gotcha.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into games here. We got Texas at Arkansas. Last I checked, the line was still Texas minus 13 and a half. I am trying to double check right now.
I've seen it
Um,
as low as 12, but
yeah, and currently it is Texas minus 12. Over under still 57 and a half, so that's interesting.
mhm.
Um, I'll let you go first on all these because little inside the park baseball, with how crazy it's been at work, I have not had an opportunity to do an outline. So Caleb did it, and I'm in fuck it, we'll do it live mode. So
Fair.
we're
Yeah,
just rolling.
that's fair. I ignore most of my notes half the time anyway, so we'll just get through it. Um, yeah, so when I'm thinking about this game, first I think about the fact that Texas has kind of been treated with kid gloves all year. Um, I think that the rigor of Georgia's schedule has kind of put Texas's schedule on the map as being not that tough. This will just be their third game outside of the state of Texas this entire season. First was Michigan, second was Vanderbilt.
Both
So,
both haters of the forward pass.
yes. So this is actually like really their first real road game in terms of the SEC.
That's nuts.
Um, yeah, and it's not even in one of the really tough SEC environments. They don't get one of those until their very last game against A&M. Arkansas has actually managed to win 5 out of the last 7 in this series, which I think dates back to the 90s, but still worth mentioning. They've
And
won
the
the
last
last
one in
two.
2021.
Yeah, exactly. Granted, Texas I think went 5-7 that year. But Arkansas has also played really poorly at home this season. They've actually played their best football on the road. They did beat Tennessee at home, but that was more of a case of Tennessee playing really badly than Arkansas playing well. Um, and Texas's offense is kind of finding their stride right now, in my opinion. Again, level of competition you have to keep in mind. It was Florida on their third string quarterback last week, but Florida on their third string quarterback last week did a lot better against Georgia than they did against Texas. So you got to keep that in mind. This spread to me is really low. Um, I think Texas wins this one pretty convincingly, which is very sad as a lover of Sam Pittman, but maybe this means we get him back on our staff.
I will say, we saw how Texas struggled with Vanderbilt in a. I'm not going to go full Nick Saban here, but Vanderbilt is not the typical SEC home environment you see.
Hmm.
Um, but what does Vanderbilt have? They have a quarterback that can hurt you with his legs, right?
Yep.
Checking the Arkansas availability report. I want to emphasize availability report because some people pitch fit if you call it an injury report. Taylon Green, probable. Jaquindon Jackson, probable. And their running back, Russell, is probable. So they have
That's a
a hydra, if you will, of running threats. And Taylon Green can launch the football. I I think Arkansas covers.
okay.
And if it is just one of those days in Fayetteville that they have every now and then, I'm not going to throw out an Arkansas win. And, you are the tiebreaker expert, but
Yeah,
it is
that's true.
better for Arkansas to win this game, correct?
Better for Georgia if Arkansas wins
Yes.
this game? Sure. I've kind of thrown out the idea of Georgia making it to the SEC championship game, but technically speaking, yes, it is slightly better for Arkansas to win this game against Texas.
Woo pig. Let's go. I
Woo
think
pig.
I do think they cover if everyone is healthy enough to finish the game. I just think they have too many options out of the backfield. Austin Armstrong has done very well this season in these type of games. And Luke has was the SEC's leading freshman tight end in terms of receiving yards last season. He's still healthy. I think Arkansas has enough options to cover a two possession spread. Um, but man, it's got to be one of those nights with Xavier and Sori and those other edge rushers going nuts for them to win this game, which is not out
Right.
of the question,
No, it's
but
not.
it's still a question.
Yeah. That is why I made my whole intro sound almost like I was also going to pick Arkansas at least to cover because that is definitely a real possibility. So I do not hate the pick. Um, but I think Texas has looked really good the last couple of weeks, but we'll see.
Next game of two teams that have really neither looked good the last couple of weeks. LSU at Florida. Um,
Both got blown out last week. Absolutely blown out.
yeah, that might have been a what size bomb do you think that was? Was that a 500? Was that 1,000? Was that a ton?
At least the size of Marco Wilson's shoe.
Yep. The line has actually shifted a little bit. LSU minus 3.5. Over under stayed steady at 55.5.
Yeah, and I think this game being in the swamp is a big time help to Florida. Obviously, there are going to be people who come out and say, "Well, the Miami game and the Texas A&M game were in the swamp," and that is true. Graham Mertz was still their starting quarterback back then. Since Lagway started getting more involved, not even starting, just more involved, they have actually been overperforming at home quite a bit. They beat the spread in their home games with Lagway getting involved in the offense by an average of 3 touchdowns, which is pretty impressive. The spread in this game is 4.5 or 3.5 right now for context. And meanwhile, LSU is coming off inviting all the popular kids to watch him beat up Alabama, popular kids being recruits, and then ended up hanging from the flagpole by their underwear. So Sunbelt Billy is not a good coach. I repeat, Sunbelt Billy is not a good coach. Why do you do the things that you do, Florida? But one thing that he can do is take advantage of weaknesses that have been exposed. And he desperately wants a bowl game. Like I know he's safe next year, but to hold on to this job long term, he really needs a bowl game this year. That they're gonna burn him in effigy and try to chase him around the street if he doesn't make a bowl game this year in Gainesville, regardless of what happens with the job. So I think Florida takes advantage of LSU's inability to run the ball and stuns them and wins outright in the swamp.
Ooh.
I don't like the pick. I feel dirty picking Florida for anything, but that's just what I'm feeling.
I will say I am not too far away from your pick here. And that is primarily due to the injuries that LSU has. So Wes
Sorry, the
Weeks,
availabilities that LSU.
oh, yeah, availabilities. So Wes Weeks is listed as probable. He is far and away head, shoulders, elbows, wrist, waist, and probably knees their best defensive player on the team. With Harold Perkins out, he is probable, which means he is still slightly injured.
Mhm.
Um, and a big factor, I think, is the amount of defensive line injuries that LSU has. And that's with DJ Lagway no longer being on the availability report whatsoever, and Montrell Johnson being upgraded to questionable.
Gotcha.
So, on top of that, I think it's going to be a running game for Florida. I
Yep.
think DJ Lagway is going to hit some guys deep. Eugene Wilson is still out, but the rest of their wide receivers that are real threats are going to be playing in this game. Um, and for me, the big thing, I'm taking the over in this one. Like
Oh yeah.
I think the over is one of the best bets of the week. just because Florida has 1, 2, 3, 4 defensive backs out.
Ooh.
And LSU is pretty much just an air raid offense at this point. Um, and meanwhile, maybe I said that wrong. Florida has 4 defensive backs out, and LSU has 3 defensive linemen out of this game. I think it's going to be one of those where whoever has the ball last wins. So I could
Long as
see
nobody,
Florida.
I'm not gonna make another shoe joke. I'm sorry.
Correct. To be fair, I do think both quarterbacks throw interceptions in this game. Um, and interceptions, emphasis on the S, or
Yes.
turnovers, emphasis on the S is probably a better way to put that. But I think the over hits, and I'm going to take LSU outright just because I think their passing game's a little bit stronger than Florida's running game. And probably to cover now that it's at 3.5, because I could see this
Yeah.
being a 31-27 type game.
Yeah. The kind of thing. It's really iffy. Like at the end, is it the kind of thing where you tie it with a field goal at the end, or is it not? Because that's gonna determine
Right.
who covers what in this game. But I don't hate the pick, especially again now that the line is down, makes it a lot easier to lay the points with LSU.
All right. So next game, honestly, it's just a giant question mark. We'll call this a Riddler. Missouri at South Carolina, and I call it that because all but 3 weeks of the season, South Carolina has not had an offense, right?
Yeah. But those 3 weeks, oh boy.
But those 3 weeks make you question if they should be in the playoff conversation, damn it.
Yeah.
And Missouri, the big question mark is, are they good? Because their record says yes, their play says no. Um, but going into this game, we do have South Carolina has shifted to a 14-point favorite.
Oh
Over
my.
under has gone down to
Wow.
41 and a half. And I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, there is a reason why South Carolina is favored. I originally had in my notes by double digits, now by 2 touchdowns in this game, and it ain't rocket science. Missouri has lost to every legitimate contender they have played against this year. None of them have been particularly close. And South Carolina has played like a legitimate contender at least half the time.
When Norris Sellers is healthy, not just playing, but when he is healthy,
Yeah.
nobody wants to play South Carolina.
No, I don't want Georgia to play them.
Hell
Do
no.
you? No.
No.
And Bama doesn't want the smoke again either. I can tell you that
Not
much.
yeah, not with a healthy South Carolina offense. Bama loses that game nine
Right.
times out of 10.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, Missouri has faced a legitimate dual threat quarterback and top of the line pass rush twice this year. Again, got blown out both times. Both of these things are things that South Carolina has. And the fact that it's a Williams-Brice certainly doesn't help matters either. Missouri has won 5 straight in the Battle of Columbia. That streak comes to a crashing halt. Both of these teams will probably end the season 9-3, in my opinion, with all of their losses coming to ranked SEC teams. But South Carolina actually has some impressive wins, while Missouri's most impressive win was Vanderbilt in overtime before Vanderbilt hit their stride. I think before Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State, if I'm not mistaken.
It was the week
So,
after.
oh, the week after. Okay. So,
Yep.
again, methinks some teams were treated with kids' gloves in the scheduling the SEC games.
Yeah, I do not necessarily disagree with you. Some teams had significantly easier paths to good records. One of those being Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And I initially wanted to take Mizzou to cover this because I truly see this as being an under game where it's a dirty 17-10 kind of game.
Oh, I could see it too.
And then I check the availability reports. Um,
Ah, more of those. Here we go.
yep,
Are you the availability guy now?
I have tried to be all year and just forget to check, but now that I don't have notes and, if for most of you, I'm assuming you have not seen the outlines I put together. Most of the time, there's way too much shit in there. Like I will look up the name of somebody's third cousin kind of shit. Like it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's stupid
Yeah.
most of the time. But when I don't have the ability to do that, I just go off of what I've seen because I watch way too much football. That's pretty much all I watch during the season, and injuries. Um, Missouri is going to be without Mookie Cooper, one of their better wide receivers, probably their number two or 2B guy.
That is
Um,
big.
yep. And Brady Cook is also still doubtful, which means the Missouri offense is going to be Drew Pine attempting to
Ah,
play football and Nate Noel and their other running back, the one that came from Georgia State. I cannot remember his name right now. Marcus Carroll.
there we go. Yeah, your
And
offense isn't exactly going to be on fire with the mayor's kid in there at quarterback.
no, no, it is not. And what is one thing? What is probably the best thing South Carolina does this year?
Get to the quarterback.
Yeah, beat the absolute shit out of who you have catching snaps.
Yeah.
Um, and Missouri is down to Drew Pine and a walk on with Sam Horn being out for the season. So it's just, I truly do not see a way for Missouri to really score much in this game. Or,
Yeah.
if you're betting over under, I would still take the under. But man, is 35-6 out of the question?
Very much not. And that isn't that the Kentucky score? I mean, they could totally do that.
Yeah, you know, man, how the mighty have fallen with Missouri. They were fighting
Oh
for a
my
playoff
gosh.
spot in
They
Athens
were
last
so much
November.
fun last year. Oh my gosh, that game was so great. And like people were complaining, obviously Georgia fans are going to complain about us doing that against any opponent, but Mizzou was legit last year and winning that game by 2 scores was kind of impressive for Georgia.
It
And now if we
was,
won that game by 9 points, it would be like, well, what's wrong with Georgia? But a lot of things are, so I guess that's valid.
yeah, and last year, Cody Schrader really was the perfect player for that entire offense.
Hmm.
Um, and also on the defensive line, they had Johnny Walker last season, who's in the NFL, and those are two guys that really made both of their schemes work. Uh, at least Cody Schrader went undrafted and then signed to the 49ers. I'm pretty sure Johnny Walker went in late rounds. So for two guys that obviously defined the entire program for Missouri, anything past a fourth round pick, whoever got them got steals.
Oh yeah. San Francisco loves those white running backs, and Cody Schrader is going to be remarkable for them one day, especially under Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, as long as he keeps wearing organic vegan shoes, who knows what his Achilles are going to be doing. So
Fair enough.
I I
As long as I keep
really
drafting him number 1 in fantasy, who knows what his Achilles is going to be doing every time. Every time I draft him in fantasy. He
I,
wasn't number 1 this year because I drafted Brock Bowers number 1, but still.
I do really want to go back and see if the company that made the shoes that he was wearing, because being from Colorado playing at Stanford, you can assume what his political leanings are pretty easily.
Yeah.
Um, but
Obviously, he is a member of the Rent is Too Damn High party from New York.
yeah, so he did sign a deal with a company that made organic, vegan, no animal cruelty, like all the buzzword shoes.
Hmm.
And ever since he signed that deal, he's had nothing but Achilles issues.
Yeah.
And I really need to go and see what the name of that company is, and two, if they're still in business,
Yeah.
because
Like, bro, just put some Adidas on and slap the logo over him at this
okay,
point.
Adidas are probably just as well made. The last two pair I had, the
Yeah, that's
soles
fair.
legitimately just fell off the bottom.
That is fair.
Let's say Asics.
Let's do
Let's go Asics.
look, I'm a dad. New Balance is perfectly fine, guys. It's perfectly fine.
It is. And New Balance makes some shoes that look good, not just
Yeah,
dad
they do.
shoes.
Yeah, although I prefer their dad shoes, but they do make some shoes that look good.
While we're talking about stuff that looks good, let's just completely not anymore. Because we are now getting into Tennessee at Georgia, and the
Mhm.
line has shifted minute by
It
minute, really.
surprising shifts throughout the week in this one.
Well, it started at what, 8.5, went up to 11 on Georgia's side of it, and it is currently back down to 9.5.
Yeah, that's more
Um,
reasonable than 11. Goodness gracious.
yeah, and the over under has actually shifted down to 47.5. Um,
Okay.
but I will let you take it from here.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say. There are a ton of questions about this game, right? Will Nico be healthy? Was Carson's sudden onset idiot syndrome suddenly cured? Has Josh Heupel ever made love to a woman? None of that matters. The only thing that matters, what color shirts will the players be wearing?
Fair question.
Yeah.
Fair question.
But in all seriousness, I do want to talk to Georgia fans for a minute. A lot of Georgia fans have been feeling like they can't talk trash to Tennessee fans or talk about this game because we lost a game this past week. And I get it, we're still in our feelings a little bit. Saturday, you got to put that aside, especially if you're going to be in Sanford. You've just got to. That cannot be the mentality when we walk into that stadium. If you want to give Georgia the best chance to win, you can. And if you still want them in the playoff, they've got to win this game. Then you need to perk the hell up by 7:30 on Saturday. All right. I don't care what you got to do it, but you got to do it because they need us in this game. This team needs us. It's the whole reason we're doing the blackout in the first place is to recapture some of that magic that makes things wild and crazy. Um,
And while we're talking about recapture, if you do blackout, record the game. You know,
yeah, you might need to recapture those memories. Um, but you might not want to, depending on how it goes. But hopefully it goes all right. With the College Football Playoff Committee, as you know by now, if you're listening to this or watching, they rank Georgia as the first team out of the playoff for now,
yeah.
and it's
Because
pretty clear
what
the
does strength of schedule matter?
right. But it's pretty clear the message they're trying to send. Even after all the gauntlets you've already gone through, beat Tennessee, and then we'll talk. And honestly, that's completely fair, Paul Feinbaum. Completely rational choice for the committee to make. I too think that if Georgia's going to make the playoff, they should prove that they should win some of these big games as they are right now. I get they beat Texas. Texas may or may
In
not be fraudulent. We'll
in
see.
Austin,
In Austin, I know it's impressive, but I understand the decision to say we'll see. Beat Tennessee first. Um, Earlier this week, I probably would have said Tennessee wins this game convincingly. Um, just again, A, in my feels over the Ole Miss game. B, our offense and secondary have been horrendous. And I think that's still going to be true on Saturday. But Tennessee is fraudulent, you guys. Now, so is Georgia, in
I don't know
fairness.
about fraudulent, but like, let's say they're posing as larger than they are. You
Yeah,
know, like we
there
all
we
have
go.
that friend that's like, oh yeah, I've done this and this and this, and you're like, dude, I've known you for 20 years. You didn't do any of that shit.
Yeah,
They're
that's
that
that
guy.
is that is who Tennessee is. That's a much better way to put it. But Tennessee has not had the gauntlet Georgia has had anywhere near it. Georgia has played more matchups away from Sanford against just top 25 opponents this year than than Georgia has played home games against anybody. Four top 25 matchups away from Sanford, 3 games total in Sanford.
Just a brutal
Gauntlet.
schedule.
Yeah. It has been over a month since Georgia's last home game. Meanwhile, it has been even longer since Tennessee played a game outside of Neyland. That's when they lost to Arkansas, by the way. They lost to Arkansas. Their only other road game this year was against Oklahoma. So, much like Texas, they haven't been in a true
Wait,
SEC
can you
road
say
environment this year.
Oklahoma without O? Because they don't have it this year.
Yeah, very true. Oklahoma. But anyway, they haven't they haven't been in an SEC environment like Georgia all year, which is important because no matter who's trotted out there playing quarterback, it's not going to be an experienced quarterback. That's very important. More importantly, I think Tennessee is the kind of team that we're built to beat. When you look at their game so far, when Tennessee has rushed for 240 yards or more, sounds like a cherry pick number, but they hit exactly 240 in one game and exactly 249 in another game. Otherwise, I would have done 250, but I figured 240 is close enough. They've averaged 55 points a game when they've rushed for 240 yards or more. When they've been held to less than that, they've averaged 23 points per game, scored as low as 14. Again, that was Arkansas. And by the way, in that Arkansas game, Nico was playing at 100%. So
Physically, at
again,
least.
yeah,
Mentally,
physically,
yeah,
maybe not.
mentally is another question.
Yeah, but I do understand that if that's gonna give me any confidence that the offense is gonna have to at least score some points. I get that, and unfortunately, our only 100% healthy running backs are freshmen, which means we're gonna have to lean on Carson Beck's arm,
Which
or Dylan Bell's.
at
But
times has not been terrible,
at
right?
at times that is true. Um, but we could also lean on Dylan Bell's arm. He showed off his arm in one of these games before, and it worked out okay. Um, doing it from the running back position where he might be on Saturday. And by the way, I do think this is the one game this year where that play where we pitch it to somebody or hand it off to somebody and they throw it is. I think this is the game where it comes out because this is the do or die game this season. But anyway, I digress. Most of the throwing obviously will be done by Carson Beck, which is going to sound this is going to sound really weird, but that makes me more confident. Because part of the reason that Bobo's play calling was what it was against Ole Miss last week is because he didn't trust Carson Beck. Now he has to, not because Carson Beck has earned his trust, but because he really does not have any other choice this week. As many injuries as we have had to deal with. So he probably has to open the playbook back up at this point. And sure, Carson might throw 3 interceptions, but this season the offense has actually performed better when he has, in a weird way.
Yep.
So honestly, at this point, if it's, we were all down on all of the interceptions before, but after watching that Ole Miss games, I will take 3 interceptions and 34 points in a game right now. But if this defensive front steps up like we've seen them do several times this season, Carson won't have to go out there and get us 30 points. I think a 16-12 Georgia win is very much on the table, which does mean that they don't cover and that they hit the under. And I honestly feel good enough about both of those to bet them, but I won't because it's a Georgia game. But yeah, I learned my lesson with that. But I do think Georgia wins this game. I think Georgia has to kind of tough it out, but I think they win it.
Yeah, no, so a huge factor to me in this game. Trevor Etienne has recently been downgraded to out completely.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Cash Jones is listed as questionable. But if we're being entirely honest with ourselves and everybody else, the most consistent running back on the team this year has been Nate Frazier.
Other than all the fumbles.
And he only had one before last week. So.
That's fair. Yeah, and it was rainy. He's a freshman. You can forgive it.
There's a couple of players that I do want to hit on for what needs to happen this week for Georgia to win, right?
Yeah.
So for Georgia to get a win this week, Dylan Fairchild and Tate Ratledge. And if you listen to our episode that came out yesterday, you're going to know I was questionable on if Tate Ratledge was going to play. He doesn't really have a choice.
Yep.
Micah Morris is listed as questionable. That is his backup. So unless they plan on putting Monroe Freeling back at right tackle and Truss back at right guard, Tate has to play.
Yeah, that's it.
And my fellow mullet man, I need you to get your shit together, big dog.
For real.
Because
That was not you last week against Ole Miss. That was not the Tate Ratledge that we have seen.
no, no. And even against Florida,
Yeah.
I know you had surgery. I get that. And as a non-athlete myself, that may shock some people. I'm not an athlete. um, I get hesitancy after surgery on a joint. I do. I still don't mentally feel 100% on my shoulder after last year. But your back's against the wall, dude. The whole team.
Yep.
Like you gotta fight your way out of this damn corner because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, this is it.
At this point, it is you punch them in the face and do not quit punching them in the face until that clock hits 0, or you're punting to next year, right?
Yep.
I've heard national media outlets say that, oh, Georgia's the one team that can make it at 9-3 this year. Bullshit.
Nope, they ain't.
No
That's
way.
not happening. The committee has made that very, very clear with where they place Georgia this week. Very
Without
clear.
absolute chaos. And I'm not saying like one or two teams in the top 10 losing from here on out. I mean, most of the top 10 losing at least one game from here on out. Georgia somehow sneaking into the SEC championship game.
Because that's the only way a 3-loss Georgia gets in the playoff, guys.
Yeah. It has to be beyond 2007 level chaos for the Georgia Bulldogs to make the 12-team playoff if they lose the game this weekend.
Yeah.
And, if you've been on social media, you've seen Kirby's post-game press conference from last week. Or not post-game press conference, post-game locker room speech from last week. And, the players, I feel like that resonated with, especially a couple of the guys. Lawson Lucky came out and said, don't let Ole Miss beat us twice is the team's mantra this week. Because what happened 7 days ago, fuck that.
Yeah.
And, as a Georgia fan, granted, this is absolutely biased. I understand that.
Red and black glasses. It's okay. We know who we are here.
I do not think that the Georgia Bulldogs, in their first home night game of the season, in their second, I guess third to last because UMass still counts, home game of the season, their first home game in a month, in the game against the Hillbillies, I do not think that this Georgia team lets a team that wears fucking orange come in to our house in between the hedges and take it home. There's
There it
no
is.
part of
Yeah.
me that believes that this team will allow that to happen, because I went back and watched a lot of that 2022 game, the last time Tennessee played at home.
And remember, coming out of that game, going into that game, Florida had just performed really well in us. Tennessee's the number 1 team in the country. They're 2019 LSU. Very similar situation. Georgia's got to win this game, and I don't think they're as good as the mighty Tennessee Volunteers.
Uh-huh. Except it's kind of flipped on Tennessee's side this year because their defense is significantly better than their offense.
Yeah.
Their offense is more the liability this season. But you know what really decided the game in 2022? There's two things. The crowd, which
Yeah.
both you and I will be a part of.
Yep.
and I fully intend on leaving that game not being able to speak.
Oh, same. Sunday night's podcast we might have to Stephen Hawking this shit.
Yeah, it may just be Mike reading our text messages for the
Right.
entirety. Um, but the second thing that won that game for the University of Georgia is the defensive line.
Hmm.
There's two guys, technically three, that were playing in 2022 on the defensive line that are not just playing on Saturday, but they're healthy.
Hmm.
You got former guest on this podcast, Nazir Stackhouse.
Yep. Big fan of his, as we all are.
You got Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, who
Hmm.
is 3 to 4 games post injury at this point. He is as healthy as he's going to get.
And guys, at this point, he has been on the defensive line at least the most consistent game wrecker on this team.
And, there's this guy. Y'all may have heard of him. You may not have. It depends on how close you pay attention. Michael motherfucking Williams is
Just some
still.
guy. He tends to just sit in the background. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you've never heard his name before.
Yeah, like I fully, in my head, in the head canon, if you will, for this game, I think Beauty and the Beast. No one does whatever like Gaston. And after Jalen Walker puts Nico back into concussion protocol, Jalen Walker and Michael Williams are just singing in their head. No one cries like Gaston. Over and over and over when they put his ass imprint in the dirt inside of Sanford Stadium.
Yeah. Make him
Because,
regret coming to the SEC so that his name changes at the end of the year to I am a leaving Tennessee.
yeah, because if you haven't heard, Tennessee's backup quarterback is Gaston Moore.
Oh, right. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And if he plays in this game, it will be the first start of his career. It will be really, truly be the first time he gets more than a quarter of play in his career. And the last place you want that to happen is between the hedges with 93,000 drunk, obnoxious Georgia fans making you regret putting on damn orange this morning.
Drunk, obnoxious Georgia fans that may or may not be blacked out.
As the Spike Squad and fellow brother and mullet Tate Ratledge have asked.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of folks have. Oscar Delp has put it out there. Lawson Lucky has put it out there. By
Wait,
the
Oscar
way,
Delp's still on the team?
apparently.
Haven't
By the
seen
way,
him in a while.
who's this guy who plays for Tennessee? Is Boo something or B something or something stupid like that? Came
Boo
out
Carter.
here. Boo Carter came out here, posted a picture posing as Dadgum Spider-Man, looking like that French gay dude who used to scale and jump off of buildings in the Spider-Man costume, sitting there saying Georgia's got none on it. Like, go ahead, please talk like
Yeah,
this. It works so well for Eric Ainge.
and bad news for Tennessee. Boo Carter is a true freshman that plays their star position, nickel corner, which means he's going to be solely responsible for covering any of 3 or 4 different guys: Lawson Lucky, London Humphreys, Dominic Lovett, or Arian Smith.
Most of those guys pretty active on social media. I imagine they've seen this, and I can't wait for the play where Lawson Lucky runs over him like he's freaking Chauncey Gardner in 2017.
Yeah, and not only that, all of those guys are experienced. All of those guys, the most consistent players on the offense for the most part, with the
Yeah.
exception of Dylan Bell not being in that list. Um, and bad news for the rest of the secondary on Tennessee's side of the football. their most veteran guy is a true sophomore.
Mm-hmm. As long
And
as Carson Beck can get these guys to football, that secondary is going to have a bad day.
and we talked about it yesterday. No rain in the forecast, very small wind. So
No
Carson Beck,
excuses.
no excuses. We're tired of excuses. We quit giving them to you, Carson, weeks ago.
Yep.
Honestly, at this point, if you suck, go ahead and text Mario Cristobal and see if he's got an opening next year because you ain't coming back to Athens.
No, you can't. Absolutely cannot.
No, no. But at the end of the day, Tennessee doesn't have the depth at linebacker to hold up for 4 quarters against guys like Nate Frazier. They
Mm-hmm.
do not have the experience in the secondary to keep guys like Arian Smith, Dominic Lovett, Dylan Bell, Lawson Lucky, potentially Oscar Delp, if he remembers how to catch football, from consistently getting the ball downfield and continuing to get first downs. I do not think that Tennessee has it in them with the health of their team currently and the way that they are actively constructed to beat Georgia in Sanford Stadium at night. I don't think they do.
No.
So, with that said, fuck Eric Ainge, fuck Nico Iamaleava, fuck Bobby Hill, and fuck Tennessee.
Indeed. Dolly Parton, Peyton Manning, all of them.
Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not saying fuck Dolly unless we're talking about the other kind. Like, let's. Come on.
Little old for my taste, but you do you.
Southern royalty, right?
Yeah.
Like that is there are very few Tennessee fans that if I ever meet Dolly Parton in person, I am not going to say fuck you for being a Tennessee fan. I'm going to avoid football because I don't want to talk shit to her. But if she talks about it, I will talk shit to her. You know what I mean?
Well, look. Well, okay. I don't care. This Saturday, she's going to be dressed in orange.
And this Saturday,
After,
she's going to have to redo her makeup at about 11:30 p.m. because she's going to be crying.
oh, yeah. They're going to have to redo all of that plastic surgery. It's going to mess her up so bad. All right.
I don't know if it's that bad. Come on now. All right. Are you ready to tell us your best fades of the week?
Yeah, I sure am. Just as a reminder, if you're new around here, we call this best fades because I genuinely think they're good bets that I'd make, but I'm terrible at this, so we should probably fade them. So first I've got Washington, UCLA. 3.5 points is the line in favor of Washington in this one. I think this is an overreaction to UCLA's upset win last week. Washington's going to win this game by a decent. I don't think they're going to blow UCLA out, but 3.5 seems low to me. So I'll lay 3.5 with Washington pretty
And that
easily.
is Friday night.
Friday night, yeah.
Yep.
Little Friday action. I'll probably be watching Georgia play Georgia Tech in basketball, which is store that away for towards the end of the show.
Whoa. No, 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 no. Basketball's a long season. You better be watching Mike Tyson knock out Jake Paul.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, that is fair.
Oh,
That's going to be a blast.
Before we get out of here, we're going to talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, we'll do both of those things. Texas, I mentioned it earlier, minus 13.5 against Arkansas. John disagrees with me, so he's probably right. Man, Pittsburgh is a 10-point home dog this weekend to Clemson.
The current line is 11.5.
11.5. I'll adjust and yeah, Pittsburgh plus 11.5. Give me the points all day, every day in that one. And then guys, Washington State is playing a football game at New Mexico, the Lobos, this weekend. Why am I even bothering to touch this game? I wasn't thinking about it. And then I saw that the total for this game was 72.5, which is very high. I had to check. I had to do some research. I'm like, are these teams scoring a bunch of points? Washington State is at home. They're scoring less than 30 most of the time on the road. And New Mexico's got a, decent averaging offense, but Not the kind of thing where I look at this and think this is like a 42-30 game or something like that. You know, give 72.5 points is absurdly high for a team total in any
It
game,
is.
in my opinion. So the under seems pretty easy to me. But knowing my luck, it's going to be a 50-50 overtime shootout.
All right. So for my best bets of the week, this hurts to say out loud. Utah is at this point on their fourth string quarterback. Colorado, on the other hand, is healthy.
And actually okay this year.
Yeah,
Actually pretty good.
yeah, probably playing in the Big 12 championship game against BYU. And should they win that game, they're getting a first round fucking bye, guys.
Yeah.
Like, let's,
Wild to think about after last year. Wild.
yeah. They're only favored by 11 and a half at home against Utah. And it pains me, especially after seeing Shadur and his bodyguards that apparently he has on the sideline for some reason, trying to fight a Texas Tech ball boy last week for picking up a football that was too close to Shadur. Uh,
Oof.
yeah, I don't. At this point, I truly do not understand how, as an NFL team, you draft Shadur Sanders and expect your locker room to be a locker room.
Right.
But in this game, I'm taking Colorado minus 11 and a half.
I don't hate that one at all.
Next one, another noon game on Saturday. Liberty is playing at UMass.
Oh,
Liberty are only 14 and a half point favorites. I know Liberty lost to Kennesaw State. I completely understand that. I watched all 60 minutes of that game. A guy knew in high school coaches for Kennesaw State. I was actively enthralled in that game.
it ain't happening
Liberty is
again.
still 3 possessions better than UMass.
I-
And I don't understand what Vegas thinks they know on that one.
Yeah, lay them.
And oh, the rest of them, the man, you actually took a couple of good ones this week. Army's not playing, so we can't cheat.
Yeah, can't bet on Army.
Not until next week to cover the inevitable 30-point spread that Notre Dame's going to get.
Oh yeah.
All right, I am going through the list here. Just a little inside the park baseball. I did not have any of this together before we got on here, so I'm actively going
Hon-
through the list.
Honestly impressive that you just rattled off two. Like,
All right,
I never would have known.
last one. Oregon playing in Camp Randall.
I looked at this one.
Man, that Wisconsin defense is not what we're used to.
No.
And Oregon, as much as they struggled earlier in the season, they are getting better every single week. It's a 13 and a half point spread. I think Oregon covers. I think they probably win by at least 17 just based on what they have. And if you want to know how much I truly believe in that one, I picked up 2 Oregon players in our college fantasy league this week. So do with that
Nice.
information what you will.
I dropped Carson Beck from my team this week.
Good call. Good call. You might win the
Yeah.
game.
Yep.
But that's going to do it for this episode of the Nothing Finer
Yeah.
podcast.
Hang on, before we go.
No,
Before we
we
go.
did not talk about it.
Yeah, so let me talk about it real quick. So last Sunday, again, some inside baseball here. There was a certain note at the bottom that I added to the podcast notes, and John abridged it a little bit, made it a little easier, said, "We think this Georgia basketball team has NCAA tournament upside," because he's a little more afraid than I am of saying things that he will regret
100%.
later.
100%.
This Georgia basketball team will be in the NCAA tournament this year. Mark my words. Everything that if you haven't watched them, they are playing Georgia Tech tomorrow, and you'll be watching a more important sporting event tomorrow. But go back and watch it later, record it if you can,
Absolutely.
because everything we used to be afraid of with this Georgia team is seemingly gone. Rebounding, a million times better than I've ever seen it with this group. That used to frustrate me so much. Defense, they are getting huge positive turnover margins. You could call them the SWAT team. They're getting so many blocks. I think I saw the stat they were averaging 3 blocks a game last year, and they're getting like 8 now. I mean, they're moving so quickly in the right direction. They just beat a North Florida team, and North Florida doesn't sound impressive until you remember that they beat Georgia Tech and South Carolina already at their places. This is a really good Georgia basketball team, and I'm really excited to actually support them. I never really got invested in Georgia basketball until they hired Mike White because I just knew what they were going to be. Guys, that we're making strides.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about that. But the thing that I actually thought we were forgetting,
All right.
the most important sporting event happening on Friday.
Perhaps the most important sporting event of our lifetime.
Potentially. Um, who are you taking, Tyson or Paul?
Oh, Tyson, come on.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to make sure you were gonna get the invite on Sunday.
Yeah. If this was a WWE match and Tyson was facing Logan, I would take Logan. But this is a real fight against Jake.
And you know, if you guys don't watch combat sports, I do. I enjoy the violence of it, the controlled violence of it. Um, Mike Tyson may be 57 years old, and I completely understand that. If you have ever seen a human being at 57 look like Mike Tyson does, let me know.
Yeah.
You just go on social media and search Mike Tyson if you want to be scared and concerned about your current physical shape. Because at this point, I am convinced that he could still knock out 98% of the human population in one hit. He is still an executioner.
Yeah.
And if you question his mentality, just go on YouTube real quick for me and search the words Mike Tyson, I am a god, and watch that video. Because if I'm ever, and this is for anything I'm doing, if I'm ever feeling down, if I'm not feeling up for whatever I'm about to do, legitimately when I go to the gym, the first thing I listen to is not music. It is that Mike Tyson, I am a god video.
Excellent choice.
Because the man is not just built physically different, but he needs to be studied mentally for what he is physically capable of doing. He is beating Jake Paul on Friday night, but I truly think he hits Jake Paul so hard that Jake Paul questions if he wants to continue boxing.
Yeah. He may be taking a trip to Japan.
Yeah, because up to this point, what has Jake Paul done in his boxing career? He's fought some retired guys that haven't trained for a while, whether that's MMA or boxing. He fought Tommy Fury. Congratulations. You know who you have not fought? Mike motherfucking Tyson.
I was trying to come up with a middle name that would be funny, but nothing suits it better. So, bravo.
Yeah, like call him the electric chair because you ain't getting out of that shit alive.
Yeah.
But now that I talked about that, because it's something I've been looking forward to for months upon months, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. If you haven't already, follow us on social media at nothing.finer.pod on Instagram, at finerpod on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Just look us up. You will find us there. Rate and review the show 5 stars. Share it with your friends. Share it with your enemies. Share it with people you don't know. Just airdrop that shit on an airplane.
At Kim Jong-un. Listen to this podcast.
Absolutely, Kim Jong-un. We don't like dictatorships, but you know, maybe we can be friends, little rocket man. But As always, remember there's nothing finer in the land
than a drunk, obnoxious, blacked out Georgia fan.